In the outskirts of Helena, Montana, where the vast plains stretched endlessly under a relentless sky, stood an old, dilapidated barn that had once housed horses. Now, it served as a makeshift home for a man and his young son. The rusted tin roof creaked with every gust of wind, patched haphazardly to keep out the rain and snow. Windows were sealed with cardboard and duct tape, offering little protection against the biting cold that seeped through the cracks. The dirt floor was scattered with dry straw, a feeble attempt to insulate against the frozen ground. This was the world of Marcus Hayes, a 41-year-old man whose broad shoulders bore the weight of shattered dreams. Marcus had once been a promising aerospace engineer at Boeing in Seattle. His life had been a blueprint of success: a loving wife named Emily, a 2-story home with a white picket fence in a quiet suburb, and a career that took him to the skies through innovative designs for aircraft. He remembered the thrill of watching prototypes soar during test flights, feeling invincible as he contributed to advancements that connected the world. But 3 years ago, everything crumbled. Emily had undergone what should have been a routine surgery, but a novice anesthesiologist's error led to complications she couldn't survive. Devastated, Marcus sued the hospital, pouring his savings into legal fees, convinced justice would prevail. Yet, the court ruled against him, citing insufficient evidence. The loss wasn't just emotional, it drained him financially. Mounting bills forced him to sell the house, and prolonged grief led to his resignation from Boeing. With nothing left, he packed what remained and moved with his son to Montana, claiming the abandoned ranch his late uncle Josiah Hayes had left behind, a forgotten property that mirrored his own broken state. The main house on the ranch had collapsed under a brutal storm. Years earlier, its roof caved in, and walls rotted beyond repair. So, Marcus and his 7-year-old son, Caleb, settled in the barn. Caleb was a bright child, with curious blue eyes that sparkled when he asked endless questions about the stars or how planes flew. But he was prone to coughing fits, exacerbated by the damp, chilly air that permeated their living space. Marcus did everything he could to shield him, wrapping him in threadbare blankets at night, sharing body heat as they huddled together on a thin mattress. By day, Marcus worked odd jobs at a local gas station, pumping fuel and scrubbing grease from his hands, earning just enough for canned soup and basic necessities. He counted coins at the grocery store, enduring the pitying stares of locals who whispered about the down-on-his-luck engineer from the city. Each morning, Marcus rose before dawn, boiling water on a portable stove for oatmeal, whispering encouragements to Caleb as the boy stirred awake. "Today we'll make it better, buddy," he'd say, though doubt gnawed at him. Nights were the hardest. As the wind howled outside, Marcus held his son, close, fighting back tears. He replayed memories of Emily's laughter, her gentle touch, and vowed silently, "As long as he lives, I can endure." Caleb, sensing his father's pain, would snuggle closer, murmuring, "I love our barn, Dad. It's like an adventure." But Marcus knew it was no adventure. It was survival. Little did he know, buried beneath the very dirt floor where they slept each night, lay something that would upend their fragile existence, a remnant from a forgotten past, waiting to resurface. Life in the small town of Helena was unforgiving for Marcus and Caleb, a place where whispers carried like the wind across the open plains. The locals weren't outright cruel, but their indifference cut deep. Children at school had taken to calling Caleb Barn Boy, a nickname that stuck like burrs on his clothes. One crisp morning in late fall, Caleb trudged home earlier than usual, his jacket smeared with mud and his eyes rimmed red from holding back tears. Marcus spotted him from the barn door, where he was patching a leak with scraps of tarp. Dropping his tools, he knelt to Caleb's level. "What happened, son?" he asked softly, brushing dirt from the boy's cheek. Caleb sniffled, avoiding his father's gaze. "They pushed me during recess, said I smell like hay and horses." His voice cracked, but he straightened up. "I told them it's our home, but they laughed." Marcus's jaw tightened, a surge of anger rising in his chest. He wanted to march to the school, demand answers from the teachers who turned a blind eye. But he paused, remembering his own battles. Lost jobs, lost court cases. "Do you want me to go talk to them?" he offered. Caleb shook his head firmly. "No, Dad. They'll just say we're different. They don't understand." Marcus pulled him into a hug, feeling the boy's small frame tremble. He sighed. Knowing the truth in a town like this, understanding was a luxury they couldn't afford. The isolation extended beyond the schoolyard. At the general store, Marcus paid for groceries with crumpled bills and coins, enduring the cashier's pitying glances. No one invited them to community barbecues or holiday gatherings. They were the outsiders, the man from the city who had fallen too far. Marcus bore it silently, focusing on survival, chopping wood for their small stove, mending clothes with needle and thread, scavenged from old rags. He taught Caleb to read by lantern light, sharing stories of airplanes and distant cities, hoping to ignite a spark of wonder in the boy's eyes. But deep down, Marcus felt the weight of failure, wondering if this was the legacy he'd leave a life on the fringes marked by hardship. One stormy evening, as rain hammered the tin roof like gunfire, Marcus set about reinforcing the barn's sagging beams. Caleb watched from their mattress bundled in blankets. While prying up a loose floorboard to check for rot, Marcus noticed an odd depression in the dirt beneath a spot where the ground seemed unnaturally sunken, the wood around it worn smoother than the rest. Curiosity piqued. He grabbed a shovel from the corner and began digging carefully, the earth yielding with a soft crunch. Caleb scooted closer. "What is it, Dad, buried treasure?" he asked with wide-eyed excitement. Marcus chuckled weakly, but his amusement faded as the shovel struck something solid metal, rusted and unyielding. Heart pounding, he cleared away more dirt, revealing an old iron chest heavy and locked with a combination dial. Etched faintly on the lid was J. S. Hayes, 1934. Josiah Hayes, his eccentric uncle, the man the town dismissed as a reclusive hoarder who lived on canned beans and pulp novels. Marcus had inherited the ranch by default, but no one had mentioned any valuables. "This must have been Uncle Josiah's," he murmured, wiping sweat from his brow despite the chill. Caleb's eyes lit up. "Can we open it? Please." Marcus nodded, and they tried combinations. Josiah's birth date from family records, his death year, even the ranch's old postal code. Nothing worked. Frustrated, Marcus rummaged through his wallet, pulling out the only memento. He had a faded photograph of his mother and Josiah taken in 1946 in front of the old homestead. On the back, in faint pencil, "The year we hid it, 46. His pulse quickened. He spun the dial to 1946. A satisfying click echoed in the dim barn. The lid creaked open, revealing canvas bags bulging with contents that gleamed under the flashlight. Beam stacks of old U.S. dollar bills, small gold ingots stamped with antique mint marks, and yellowed documents detailing land deeds in Wyoming and mining rights to a long-abandoned silver vein. Atop it all lay a brittle note in Josiah's spidery handwriting. "If you're reading this, it's time for the Hayes name to rise again. Use it wisely. Don't let them take it from you." Marcus sat back on his heels, stunned. Caleb whispered in awe, "Is this treasure, Dad? Are we rich?" Marcus didn't respond immediately. Instead, he pulled his son close, a mix of joy and dread washing over him. This could change everything, or invite dangers he wasn't prepared for. The morning after the discovery, Marcus rose with a mix of exhilaration and unease, the chest's contents weighing heavily on his mind. He carefully selected a small portion, a few gold ingots, and a stack of bills, and drove into Helena under a gray, overcast sky. The law office was a modest brick building downtown, where he met with Elias Grant, an aging attorney who specialized in estates and had handled his uncle's sparse affairs years ago. Marcus laid out the items on the desk, explaining the find without revealing too much. Elias's eyes widened as he examined the documents and valuables, calling in a financial appraiser for verification. After hours of scrutiny, Elias leaned back in his chair. "This is legitimate, Marcus. The cash is from the 1940s and 50s untaxed inheritance at this point. The gold ingots are pure, and those deeds covered land in Wyoming with old silver mining rights. Conservative estimate around $4 million, give or take market fluctuations." Marcus's breath caught. It was more than he could fathom, but Elias's expression turned grave. "You're the sole legal heir, no question, but word gets out in small towns. If this leaks, you'll have vultures circling. Be careful who you tell." Marcus heeded the warning, stashing the chest back under the floorboards and swearing Caleb to secrecy. For 3 days he kept a low profile, pondering how to use the fortune, perhaps fix the ranch, secure Caleb's future, or even revisit the lawsuit against the hospital, but small towns had ears everywhere. A teller at the bank where he discreetly exchanged a single ingot must have talked, because by the week's end the local paper splashed the headline, "Barn-Dwelling Man Unearths $1 million Hoard on Late Uncle's Ranch." The article speculated wildly about Josiah's hidden wealth, painting Marcus as a rags-to-riches story straight out of a novel. The shift was immediate and unsettling. Neighbors who had once averted their eyes now waved enthusiastically as Marcus drove by. At the gas station, his boss clapped him on the back. "Lucky break, Hayes. Drinks on you next time." Strangers appeared at the ranch gate, a slick real estate developer from Billings offering to flip the Wyoming land for quick cash, a financial advisor pushing high-risk investments with promises of doubling the money. Marcus politely declined, but the intrusions grated on him. Caleb came home one day buzzing with questions from classmates. "Is it true you're millionaires now? Can I see the gold?" The boy beamed at first, but Marcus saw the confusion in his eyes. Worse came when a burly man named Harlan Reeves showed up unannounced one evening, claiming to be an old acquaintance of Josiah's. Harlan, with a grizzled beard and a faded tattoo peeking from his sleeve, leaned against his truck. "Heard about your find. Josiah owed me back in '67, loaned him cash for mining gear. That debt's mine now with interest. Half the hoard ought to cover it." Marcus demanded proof, but Harlan produced a yellowed IOU suspiciously pristine. When Marcus refused, Harlan's tone darkened. "Don't make this hard, city boy. I know where you and the kids sleep." He left with a smirk, but the threat lingered like smoke. Panicked, Marcus consulted Elias again, who uncovered the ploy Harlan had a history of fraud and was likely forging documents to stake a claim. A lawsuit followed, swiftly dragging Marcus into the county courthouse. The proceedings were tense. Harlan's lawyer painted Josiah as a debtor and Marcus as an opportunistic outsider. Witnesses from town testified vaguely about old rumors, and for a moment, Marcus feared history repeating the hospital case all over again, where evidence slipped away. But digging through the chest papers revealed Josiah's meticulous records, a canceled check from 1967 proving the debt had been settled. Elias presented it dramatically, exposing Harlan's forgery. The judge ruled in Marcus's favor, ordering Harlan arrested for fraud and perjury. As the gavel fell, relief washed over Marcus, but so did a sobering realization. He stepped outside into the crisp Montana air, watching Harlan being led away in cuffs. The treasure had saved them from poverty, yet it had nearly torn their fragile peace apart. "This isn't just money," he muttered to himself. "It's a test." He resolved to stay and fight for his inheritance, but wiser now, knowing that wealth invited envy and true security lay not in gold, but in the bonds he cherished most. After the courtroom victory with Harlan hauled away in handcuffs and the judge's ruling echoing in his ears, Marcus returned to the ranch under a sky streaked with the first hints of dawn. The treasure now legally, his felt less like a burden and more like a lifeline. He wasted no time. Within days he hired local contractors' men from Helena, who had once eyed him with suspicion, but now nodded respectfully and began transforming the property. Trucks rumbled up the dirt road, unloading lumber, shingles, and insulation. Marcus oversaw the work personally, his hands calloused from years of labor, now directing others. The main house, its collapsed roof, a symbol of neglect, rose anew. Sturdy wooden beams formed a cozy two-story structure with a wraparound porch, a modern kitchen gleaming with stainless steel and large windows framing the snow-dusted hills of Montana. Upstairs, Caleb got his own room, painted sky blue with shelves for books and a desk where he could draw airplanes. But Marcus couldn't bring himself to demolish the old barn. It stood as a testament to their hardships, the cold nights, the whispered fears, the unbreakable bond between father and son. Instead, he repurposed it. Workers reinforced the walls, installed proper flooring and lighting, and added insulated doors. Marcus stocked it with donated books, secondhand computers, and cozy reading nooks. He named it the Barn of Hope, a community library for the town's underprivileged children. Caleb dove into the project with enthusiasm, painting murals on the walls, scenes of hidden treasures, not gold, but families laughing together. "This is our real treasure, Dad," he said one afternoon, brush in hand. "It's where we started." Marcus ruffled his hair, a lump forming in his throat. The barn's grand opening drew a small crowd, curious neighbors, who marveled at the change, whispering about the man who had turned rags into renewal. Life settled into a new rhythm. Marcus invested a portion of the funds into the ranch, planting vegetable gardens and raising chickens that scratched contentedly in the yard. No more odd jobs at the gas station. He focused on sustainability learning to till the soil and harvest crops that fed them through the seasons. He invited local kids to the library, hosting story hours where he shared tales of his Uncle Josiah, not as the eccentric hermit the town remembered, but as a clever man who had outwitted hard times by hiding his fortune. He knew wealth wasn't just money. Marcus would say, his voice steady. It was protecting what matters. The children listened wide-eyed, and slowly the town's perception shifted. Invitations trickled in, a barbecue here, a school event there. Marcus was no longer the outsider. He was the man who had risen from the ashes. Yet old memories lingered like shadows in the corners of the new house. Each night after tucking Caleb in, Marcus would sit by the fire, staring at Emily's photo on the mantel. "We made it, love," he'd whisper, tracing her smile with his finger. The grief hadn't vanished. It had softened, woven into the fabric of his days. One evening, as snow fell softly outside, Caleb padded downstairs in his pajamas. "Dad, are you scared? We'll lose it all again?" he asked, climbing onto the couch. Marcus paused, the firelight flickering in his eyes. "I used to be terrified of that, of losing the house, the money, everything. But now I know the real fear is losing you. As long as you're here, even if we end up back in that barn, I'd be okay." Caleb hugged him tightly, and they sat, listening to jazz records, Emily's favorites, sharing stories of her laughter and warmth. The music filled the room, easing wounds that time alone couldn't heal. Amid the changes, an unexpected spark appeared. While organizing a reading club at the barn, Marcus met Sarah Ellis, a single mother and teacher from town who volunteered her time. With warm brown eyes and a quiet strength, she helped arrange books and plan events, her laughter blending with the children's. Conversations turned personal over coffee. Her loss of a husband to illness, his journey through grief. Attraction grew, but Marcus hesitated, haunted by the past. "What if I can't protect another heart?" he confided one day. Sarah smiled gently. "You already are. Look at this place." For the first time in years, hope flickered brighter than fear. 2 years had passed since the barn's transformation, and the ranch had blossomed into a haven of quiet prosperity. Marcus had channeled a significant portion of the fortune into sustainable ventures, expanding the gardens into a small organic farm that supplied local markets and installing solar panels that powered the house and library. The Barn of Hope had become a community staple, buzzing with after-school programs where children from struggling families gathered for homework help and story sessions. Marcus often volunteered there, his once weary face now lined with purpose rather than despair. He had hired a part-time manager, allowing him time to focus on broader initiatives. Drawing from his own trials, Marcus established the Hayes Legacy Fund, a non-profit dedicated to supporting single fathers across Montana. The fund provided emergency housing, legal aid for custody battles or medical disputes, and vocational training programs. He partnered with local organizations, using Josiah's old mining deeds to generate revenue through eco-friendly leases, turning abandoned silver veins into sites for geological education tours. The fund's first success story was a young widower from Billings, whom Marcus personally mentored through job retraining. "I know what it's like to hit rock bottom," he'd say during workshops, his voice steady. "But rock bottom can be the foundation you rebuild on." Donations trickled in as word spread, and Marcus found fulfillment in giving back, honoring his uncle's cryptic note to let the Hayes name rise again through wisdom, not greed. Caleb, now 9, had thrived in this new environment. The boy who once endured taunts as Barn Boy had become a star student at Helena Elementary. His curiosity about engineering, sparked by tales of his father's Boeing days, led him to science fairs and robotics clubs. Marcus beamed at parent-teacher conferences where educators praised Caleb's resilience and intellect. "He's got your grit," one teacher remarked. But it was Caleb's essay for a statewide scholarship contest that truly shone, titled, "My Home Was a Barn, but My Dad Made It a Castle." It recounted their journey from poverty to purpose, weaving in lessons of perseverance and kindness. The piece won first place, securing a full scholarship to a prestigious boarding school for gifted children, starting in middle school. The culmination came at Caleb's elementary graduation ceremony, held in the school auditorium, under bright lights and fluttering banners. Marcus sat in the front row, Sarah by his side, her hand in his, a quiet anchor in the sea of proud parents. Their relationship had deepened steadily. Sarah, with her own history of loss, understood Marcus's hesitations and celebrated his strengths. She had moved in 6 months prior, bringing warmth to the house with homemade meals and laughter that echoed through the halls. As Caleb took the stage as valedictorian, dressed in a crisp shirt and tie, the room hushed. Clearing his throat, Caleb began, "People used to laugh when I said I lived in a barn. They thought it meant we were poor or broken. But my dad taught me that a home isn't walls or roofs, it's the love inside. We slept on straw-shared blankets in the cold, but Dad made every day an adventure. He fixed leaks, told stories of flying machines, and promised better tomorrows. When we found the treasure, it wasn't the gold that changed us. It was what Dad did with it. He built a library for kids like me, started a fund for dads fighting alone. He's the real treasure." His voice steadied, eyes locking on Marcus. "A house doesn't define you, love does. And Dad, you're my castle." Applause erupted as Caleb stepped down, but Marcus remained seated, tears streaming silently down his face. Not from sorrow, but from overwhelming pride. This boy who had endured so much had grown into someone wise beyond his years, with dignity, gratitude, and a courageous heart. Sarah squeezed his hand. "You did this," she whispered. Marcus shook his head. "We did. Emily would be so proud." Rising, he enveloped Caleb in a hug, the audience's cheers fading into a warm blur. In that moment, Marcus realized the greatest gift wasn't the $4 million buried in the earth. It was the unbreakable bond with his son, forged in adversity and tempered by love. The Hayes legacy lived on, not through wealth, but through acts of humanity that rippled outward, touching lives they might never know. As snow blanketed the ranch that winter, Marcus stood on the porch with Sarah and Caleb, watching the flakes dance. From the cold dirt floor of despair, a future had risen, rooted in resilience, blooming with hope.